All right, rolling. Um, it's a good place to start. I usually have a preface for things whenever I start talking about things, but then it is a difficult one to have a preface for. I guess I'm just going to try to tell a story. Yeah. Um, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I remember that because my sister was a baby. She was about a newborn, and there was a flood in the house that we lived in, and because of that, we had to we had to go live at our grandparents for a while. It was a bigger house. It was a duplex, so there are quite a few people who lived there, and that's when it first started. Even after that, though, even when we moved back to our house, we would visit every Sunday to go to church, since I used to go to church back then. So I'd be there every week. It would almost be part of a routine. It almost felt like going to church. I guess the way it started was in tune with how, at least I've read and I've heard, abuse to start. And that's usually it starts off with a joke, and then an inside joke, and then you feel seen because you have inside jokes, and then because you have inside jokes, then you have secrets, and then after the secrets, then once you start trusting someone with the secrets, then it's much easier to trust someone with everything else. And it's strange, I guess, because all of it kind of just started to come back to me quite recently. And when I talk about it coming back, it wasn't as if I'd forgotten about everything. It was almost as if I'd taken each of those moments as they happened and I put them in this box, and I just kind of like chipped them away, to eventually reopen once I felt I could make sense of it all. Not that I did that consciously. I think it just happened that way. Being in your 20s and kind of having to chisel or attempt to chisel myself into a man that I can be proud of, and then having all of that hit me like a truck at about 23, 24 was quite the experience. So I wrote a song about it. So my name is Justin Luis, and I currently reside in Nashville, Tennessee. I moved to the U.S. A little more than 4 years ago now. Originally from Manila, Philippines. Spent the first 21 years of my life there, which is insane. And it's crazy to think that I've been here for 4 years. It doesn't feel that long, not at all. I've always been a sucker for a good story, ever, for as long as I can remember. Just the ability or the feeling of being completely enamored by a story and how it's told. I don't think there's very few things that I love more than that. But I think it wasn't until I got older that I realized why I loved it. And I think the reason that I did was because even though it's a story, even though it could be made up in complete fiction, the emotions that you have to tap into are very real. That regardless of the story that I'm telling and the way I'm telling it, or the way whoever I'm watching is telling it, when I feel something, I'm feeling something that's real to me. And that's all that matters. And I find that fascinating. And so when I write, I try to have the things that I create put me in that headspace, or try to provide that to the people that I share it with. I wanted it to be much more about understanding, really, than justice or whatever you would call it. I wanted it to be less about what had happened or why it happened or who had done it, and more about the person that you're left with once what was taken, and kind of having to keep going from there.
How do you come up with the imagery in the song? There's very vivid imagery that's not direct, it's more metaphorical. Can you want to talk about your writing process and the imagery of what people will hear in Stolen?
Yeah. I learned to swim when I was very young. And then the way I was taught to swim would be to understand that I had no control over the water, and never to, or not to try to fight against the water because you can't control it, and so you had to find a way to move with it. I guess everything happening, and every time it did happen, and every time I was in it, was the smallest I've ever felt, and I had no control over anything that was going on. And I felt like I was underwater. And so that feeling of just having no control, of almost drowning in the lack of control, made me imagine as a kid would, of something that didn't just float on top of the water, but beat the current. You would man your sails and you would go where you wanted. And so I felt that using a ship, using a pirate ship, was a perfect vessel to put away those memories and put away those moments, and have them come back once I was ready. It made me feel like I had control, because captains do. It's very easy to define the American dream as a car and a white picket fence, and to get married and to have children and to be at a good school zone and this and that. But I think, to me, it's just, even the shot at all of that is a dream to me. The fact that I feel that I can now, that's a goal attained. And if I get all of it, if I get part of it, if it all crumbles and I don't get any of it, I feel like having been able to put myself and my sister and even my mother as well, that's a dream in itself. And I feel good about that. I write as much for myself as I do whoever I'm writing it for. And this one in particular, Stolen in particular, I wanted to just finally be able to acknowledge something and have that be just a regular part of me, the way any other fact about myself is just true and it's just there. It's not who I am, it's just something that happened. It's just one of the many, many truths. And I feel like that truth in context to everything else allows whoever listens to it to have a better understanding of me and what I want to, and the things that I want to say and the stories that I want to tell, yes. But if the process of listening to that allows you to, or allows whoever's listening to take a closer look at themselves as well, then I would be happy to be part of that process.
Till one day the boy will